Hey guys, welcome back to Four Towers Films and another recap of The Young and the Restless. This one for March 13th, 2019. If you're in the United States, this is your March 14th. It's a day ahead. We start with Nikki walking around her holding room and Victor coming in and they embrace. And she's very happy to see him before she gets taken away. She worried that she wouldn't be able to see him before they took her out. And Victor tells her he's going to do everything in his power to make sure that the charges are dropped, this is an outrage to justice, and that this never should have happened, that 30 years is ridiculous, and it's more like she committed cold-blooded murder than protected their daughter. And he's going to do whatever he can, that the conviction must be thrown out immediately. Nikki fears that this could be the last time that they see each other for a while, and he says and she laments about how much time they've lost, that she wishes that they hadn't broken up over petty things over the years and that she'd walk out and come back. And he tells her, I know, but don't worry about that there's no such thing as goodbye for them, that they are meant to be together and they will always be together no matter what happens. And this is just another bump in the road, basically, for them. And he tells her that he wishes she had let him go to trial and confess to the murder, and he was an innocent man, that he wouldn't have been convicted, and even if he was, he'd be okay because he'd know his family was safe and that they were fine and nothing would have happened to them and that they could live their lives. And Nikki says, no, I was never going to let that happen. I was already feeling guilty and I wasn't going to let them put you away for something that I did. It just wasn't going to happen that way. Nikki says that she hates that her confession has put Victoria into the situation that has dragged her back into this whole JT mess. And she makes Victor promise that he's going to focus on Victoria's appeal first because she needs to get home to her children and that they need her. And he says, he promises and that he's going to do everything he can to get both of them off. It's not just going to be how it is. It's not just going to let this happen. Mariah, at the same time, is visiting Sharon, and she says that she's going to visit her as much as possible and not to worry about Faith or about anything. And she breaks down with her, and Sharon asks her to be there for her sister. And Mariah apologized because she says she just didn't want to be that. She didn't want to break down, and she wanted to be strong and be a pillar of strength for Sharon. And Sharon said it's okay. Don't worry. She understands that she's been there for her, that it's not her fault and not to feel bad about this. And Mariah is upset because Faith needs her mother. And Sharon said, it's okay. And she brings up Tessa, and Sharon says to her that she knows she paid the bail for Tessa to get out. And Mariah says, I hope that's okay, like that she doesn't think bad of her. And Sharon says, no, she's past judging her about Tessa. And she's learned that to trust Tessa or to trust Mariah's judgment instead of trying to force her own opinion and judgment on Mariah. And she says she really isn't any position really to judge anyway because of Ray's manipulations, and she never should have believed him. So her own judgment is skewed when it comes to relationships anyway. Victoria and Nick are visiting, and Victoria's worried about Nikki's sentence and saying it's ridiculous that she's going away for 30 years. She's not a cold-blooded murderer. She's just doing what any mother would do in protecting her child, and that this is a travesty. And Nick says that he agrees, and Victoria believes that JT's out there somewhere laughing at them, metaphorically. She doesn't actually believe what Nick does, that he's still alive. But Nick does believe that, and he's convincing Billy of the same thing, and that they're going to work together to try to fix this whole mess and prove that JT's alive and that he's the one that was living in the walls and that is terrorizing the women. Victoria makes Nick promise that him and Billy will keep the kids safe, and he says they will work together and the kids are going to be just fine, and they're going to have their mom. They're going to get this overturned as soon as they can. And Nick then goes to visit Nikki and says that Dad's going to move heaven and earth to prove that they're innocent and to get all of them out of here and get the verdict overturned. And he said now he regrets not helping Victor get them out of town when they could have. And Nikki said, well, you weren't on the best terms then. So, but that's in the past. And she says, this is actually better. She's glad that they didn't do that. And, this, at least it's out and it's dealt with. And, once they get the verdict overturned, they can really kind of move on with their lives from that point. Victor goes to visit Victoria and they hug, and he tells her she's always been the strong one out of all the children and to stay there. And he's going to arrange it so that Nikki and Victoria are in close proximity in the same prison. And Victoria says that will help, definitely, being close by, and that she worries about her mom in prison. And she said, this is awful because what Tessa said after what they did to her testimony made her seem like they were ruthless and that she'd do anything possible to get what she wanted. And really, she kind of regrets doing that now, the kidnapping of Tessa. And Victor says, no, you were just doing what you can to protect yourself and protect your mother. It's what any Newman would do, and never doubt yourself on that. It was the right thing to do, and that Christine is the one who got it wrong, and Christine's being ruthless and has a vendetta against them, and that's really why this is even happening in the first place. And they hug after he gives her a pep talk. Summer shows up at Jabot, and Phyllis is there looking over some files, and Summer is upset, about the guilty verdict and that her grandmother's going away for 30 years and that this is a travesty. And Phyllis agrees with her and again feels guilty about her part in all this. And she felt that maybe she could have done more to help with that. Not maybe what she said shouldn't have been construed the way it was, and that they really shouldn't be going to prison for the length of time that they are. They should be walking. And after that, they start talking about the wedding, going over what flower she wants, kind of dress she wants, kind of romantic, or the honeymoon. And Summer says she doesn't know where the honeymoon is going to be because Kyle hasn't told her. Billy shows up and interrupts their conversation, and he's like, you're talking about wedding plans, just shows how ruthless you are and that you really don't care about anything. And Summer says, excuse us, this is a private conversation. And Billy leaves. Phyllis brings up the honeymoon and saying, because Summer doesn't seem to really care about where they're going. Like, she's not that happy about where they're going for the honeymoon. And she says again, she doesn't really quite understand why this is such a rush. Like, why do they have to get married tomorrow? Like, why not plan the wedding of her dreams? And Summer, well, because we've waited so long, and that, we don't want to wait another minute to be together, that we are in love, and this is how we want it to be. And Phyllis doesn't quite get why this is such a shotgun wedding kind of thing. But Summer's like, nope, I'm not talking about it anymore. But Phil says, does this have to do with Lola's transplant? Are you the donor? And someone's like, oh, no, 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 of course not. And so she gets a phone call and says, oh, I'll be right there. And she's like, oh, I'm done. I'm not talking about this anymore. I'll come back later and we'll talk more about the wedding. And she leaves. At the hospital, Kyle's sitting with Lola, and Nate talks to Kyle about Summer because Kyle is not quite 100% sure that Summer's going to go through with it. And Nate assures him that she's signed all the papers, that she understands the risks, that she's more than willing to go through with the surgery as long as it's anonymous and that nobody knows who the donor is. Like, Kyle's still not 100% sure. He thinks that maybe she'll back out and is their backup donor. And Nate says, no, Summer's it. There hasn't been another one that's been found. So Kyle goes back in and talks and sits with Lola. And she wakes up. Kyle's overjoyed. He's so happy. So, it's been a month, or it's been a while since I've seen your face. It's so good to see you. And she's glad to see him too. And she wonders where she is. And he said, in the hospital. She's been there a long time. And he said that Nate is her doctor. He's going to go get him to let him know that she's awake. And she says, okay. Nate comes in and things look good. Her levels are all right. And she said, she's tired. And he says, that's to be expected. It's all normal for what she's going through right now. And he obviously has filled her in on the prognosis. And he said, it's a good thing you're awake because there's somebody here who's been wanting to see you for a long time. And Lola says, okay, if she's up for visitors. And Lola says, yeah, that's fine. And so Arturo comes in and sits with her and asks, does she know what happened? And she says she remembers it being cold and at night, but she doesn't really remember what else happened. And he says, yes, it was February that this happened, that she was injured, and that she's been asleep for about a month. It's mid-March now. But she doesn't seem to realize she was attacked, and Arturo doesn't tell her anything. He thinks it's better not to say anything to upset her. And he also tells her that there is an anonymous donor and that she's going to be getting a liver, and explains how the procedure works, and that she'll be up and better and on her feet in no time, ready to resume her life. She asked to see Kyle again, and he said, Kyle? And she goes, yeah, Kyle was just here a few minutes ago. Can you send him back in? And Arturo didn't see him, and Kyle's kind of peeking around the door frame, looking at them, but he leaves the hospital without seeing her again. Arturo goes to talk to Nate and says she doesn't seem to remember anything about the attack. Is everything okay? And he goes, oh, yeah, that's pretty normal. That, she's foggy. She's coming out of a month-long coma. And Arturo tells him that he didn't fill her in on that. And Nate says, that's probably a good idea. That can all be explained later when she's up and around and she's feeling better. Phyllis arrives at the police station and she wants to see Nikki, Sharon, and Victoria. And that the officer asks, are you their lawyer or relative? And she says, no, she just needs to see them. So he goes to ask the women if any of them want to see her, and Victoria is the only one who does. And so Phyllis goes in and thanks Victoria for agreeing to see her. And during that time, Nick is talking with Sharon. And Sharon tells Nick that I don't want Faith to see me because Faith wants to visit her in prison. And he said this might be the last chance we get because they don't know which prison they're going to move them to. And she says she doesn't want her traumatized. So, phone calls and letters right now until we know for sure if the conviction is going to be overturned or what, that sort of thing. And then they'll make arrangements later. Faith knows that she's going to prison. And of course, she's upset by the sentences and angry about it. Nick says, this is partially his fault because if he hadn't broken her trust, she would have felt she could trust him to come to him with this, and she wouldn't have been vulnerable to Ray manipulating her. But Sharon more or less saying, that's, basically water under the bridge, and they'll have to work their way through this for Faith. An officer had come in and asked Sharon if she wanted to see Phyllis, and Sharon declines. Phyllis goes in to see Victoria and says she feels terrible about this. Tell me what I can do to help turn this around. I'm willing to do anything. And Victoria's like, no, you've done quite enough. You don't really understand how we feel. You're going to be walking around scot-free, and the three of us are going to be in prison, while you resume your life, and just for your own selfish means. And Phyllis says, hello, Nikki and Sharon both broke before she did, so why is this all on me? And Victoria says, why Nikki confessed, because you are pushing and pushing, and more or less manipulating everyone to believe, the police to believe, that it was Victor who was to blame for this, and she didn't tell them otherwise. And Victoria told her that, back up, because Nikki's not going to let Victor go to jail for this, that she'll confess. And that's exactly what she did. She couldn't let Victor go to prison for something she did. She's never going to let that happen. So Victoria says, she doesn't trust her anymore, that, she'll never let her help her. She doesn't believe she would do anything out of the goodness of her heart. And even from prison, she's going to make sure Phyllis pays for what she did. Billy comes in after to say his goodbyes to Victoria, and they hug, and he reassures her again that the kids are going to be just fine. Victoria says we have to think of what we're going to say to them. We can't tell them that I'm away on a business trip. They're going to think I abandoned them. And Billy says, no, they won't. I'm never going to let that happen. And Billy says, I'm not going to tell them that you're away, like that you're gone to prison, because right now, we're working on something, Nick and I, and we're going to see about getting this overturned. So we're not going to tell the kids anything until we're pretty sure. If it comes to that, then we'll tell them. But for now, we're not going to say anything. Nick and Billy show up at the police station and ask the officer they want to see Ray Rosales. And the officer says he's not in. He's in the field and he can't be reached. And Nick says, well, get him back here. This is a matter of life and death. Victor is sitting at the athletic club having a drink, and Summer comes in and hugs her and says, oh, Grandpa, this is awful. 30 years for Grandma and 10 for Victoria. This is horrible. And Victor says, no, I'm going to get Christine back for this because it's ridiculous. And they're going to do whatever they can, basically, to get them off and get them out or get the verdict overturned. And Victor tells Summer, she's going to be needed at Newman. Her new job starts tomorrow. She has to step up, but she's kind of like, I kind of can't because I'm getting married tomorrow. And he goes, married to who? And she says, Kyle. And he goes, what? You're marrying an Abbott? And she goes, oh, Grandpa, you like Kyle. He's so hardworking. He's wonderful. He's my best friend. We get each other and we're really in love. And we don't want to waste another minute. And she goes, I understand if you don't want to be there. But Victor says he'll be there. But, the next day she's got to get right back to work. And so she's like, oh, yeah, we're kind of going on a honeymoon. And he goes, well, hon, like, what? Marriage is about sacrifice. Will he not be willing to sacrifice stuff for you? And, she's kind of hemming up. She kind of can't tell him that she's going for surgery, but she says, we want to go on the honeymoon kind of thing. And it sounds like she's going to get it. Kyle shows up at Crimson Lights and Mariah meets him there. And Kyle tells Mariah that Lola's awake and Mariah's happy. And she tells him that, hey, you must be wanting to spend every waking minute with her. And he said, oh, yeah, and that he apologizes for not being there during the trial. And Mariah goes, oh, no, I understand completely. This is really important, too. She says, hey, how about I get a coffee and I'll come with you and we'll go visit Lola together. And he says, yeah, I'm not going back today. And she says, why not? He leads her out to the back part of Crimson Lights and goes, now this has to be completely confidential. You can't tell anybody. Not your mom, not Tessa, not anybody. And he tells her that Summer's the anonymous donor. And she says, well, what? She's actually going to do something. Snowflake's actually doing something selflessly. And he goes, yeah, well, And she goes, she has everything. He goes, well, not really. She's kind of getting something for it. And she's a Newman. What could she possibly want? She's got everything. She wants except you. And then she realizes it's Kyle. And she goes, what? You're going to break up with Lola to be a pretend boyfriend for someone that you don't love? And he goes, oh, no, she wants the moon. We're getting married. Mariah goes off on him and saying, are you nuts? Are you going to wreck your life for Summer? Summer's bullying you into doing this? How selfish can she be? And Kyle says, no, this is his idea. She needed an incentive to do it. And it's going to be okay. He just wants Lola to get better. That's all he cares about. Summer ends up calling and saying that Victor gave her permission to have a short honeymoon and will be at the wedding the next day. And Kyle's like, oh, great, wonderful. And the honeymoon will be just long enough for her to have the surgery and to recover for a few days. And all Kyle has to do is show up and say, I do. Well, that's it for today's Y&R recap. I hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss another recap. It's great when when you're too busy to watch it yourself. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.